episode of In the Workplace. My name is Weiting Tao. I am the research editor at the Institute for Public Relations Organizational Communication Research Center. Today, I have the greatest pleasure to have one of my dear colleagues, Dr. Queenie Li, to share her insights on diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, in the workplace. So Dr. Queenie Li is an assistant professor in the Department of Strategic Communication at the University of Miami. Her primary research interests are public relations and health communication, with a focus on the strategic planning, application, and evaluation of communication campaigns that mobilize the public and facilitate health education, promotion, and equality. Specifically, she has invested topics such as diversity communication, mental health advocacy, and so on. She has published more than 50 peer-reviewed journal articles and book chapters. Specifically on the topic of DEI in the workplace, Dr. Li has published more than 6 high-impact scholarly articles. So based on your years of work, what is DEI in the workplace? How do you define it?
Right. So first, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to discuss about DEI in the workplace with everyone. So the definitions of DEI, of course, we all know DEI refers to diversity, equity, and inclusion. In the workplace, it refers to different types of principles, programs, or practices, but the same goal is trying to create a more inclusive and equitable workplace for the employees. And just be more specific in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. For diversity, we're talking about, for example, the differences among employees in the workplace based on their background. But it's not only limited to race. The first things we think about or that came to our mind when it comes to diversity is always about race, right? But it's not only limited to race. It's actually, we're talking about different types of backgrounds, whether it's about your gender, your age, sexual orientation, religion, disability. These are all different ways we define people. So basically, in a workplace, we're trying to value and promote the inclusions of individuals with a wide range of different backgrounds. So that's diversity. And for equity, we're talking about how we can provide a fair access or environment to opportunities or resources, regardless of the employee's background or identity. So that's equity. And then finally, inclusions, we're talking about how we can create an environment where all different types of employees with all different backgrounds feel welcome, respected, and valued. So it's about the culture, right? How we can create a culture where individuals, employees from diverse backgrounds can fully participate and feel valued and cared in the workplace.
Thank you for the definition. And my next question is, organizational DEI has attracted a lot of attention from PR professionals and also researchers, right? Especially in the past 5 years. So from your perspective, why is this topic so important? And for example, what are some of the important benefits that DEI can produce for the employees and their organization?
Okay, so the first part of the question, why it becomes a really important topic in public relations scholarship, I think this is actually relevant to our demographic shifts in society right now. So for example, in the United States, when it gets to around 2040 to 2050, our country is actually going to become a majority minority country. That means our society is becoming even more diverse. So this has been a really topical issues in our society right now. So of course, scholars are more aware of the importance of DEI, especially after multiple social movements since 2018, like Me Too movement, hashtag Me Too movement, or Black Lives Matter. Right. So, of course, organizations, they have to reflect their diversities in order to engage with their stakeholders, because this is the topic their stakeholders actually care about it and pay a lot of attention to. So that's one of the reasons why organizations starting paying more attention. And of course, when the industry is actually putting more efforts in this topic, as scholars, we definitely need to allocate more resources to understand this context as well and see how we can provide more meaningful practical implications to industry based on our expertise and based on our research. And in terms of the second part of the question, what would be the benefits for organizations or for employees if they considering DEI in the workplace? I think it actually go hand in hand, right? When we practice or influence DEI in the workplace, there are definitely a lot of benefits for organizations. First, reputations, right? Whether it's internally or externally. So the reputation is actually going to affect other business strategies. If the company is not actually practicing DEI in the workplace, but all of a sudden the company is trying to, for example, take a stand, trying to fight against racial justice in our society, then stakeholders might actually notice the misalignments between their practice in the workplace and their communication externally. So that might actually create some issues. So definitely reputations and the influence on their future business strategies would be one of the influence for organizations. And then, of course, if the organization practices DEI, employees definitely will have more better well-beings and productivity because they feel included and they feel valued and welcomed in the workplace. So definitely the organizations can maintain or attract more talent, also creates a sense of belongingness and community in the workplace, which might actually lead to better work outcome and work performance. So like I say, I feel like the benefits for organizations and employees are actually going hand in hand. They are so related to each other. And that actually highlights the importance of DEI in the workplace because it not only benefits the organizations or the other party, it actually benefits both.
Thank you. This is a really good insight. And also my next question is, based on your work and observation, what are some of the best practices of DEI communication in the workplace?
I think there are some different examples. For example, leadership commitment is really important because leaders actually represent the organization, and leadership style actually affects the organization's operations and their business strategies. So if you see leaders who are very visible as a visible advocates for DEI, that's a really great practice of DEI in the workplace, right? And also transparency is about initiatives or progress because those communication actually establish trust and credibilities among employees and stakeholders. We also saw one resources in the workplace is called employee resource groups, ERG. We see more and more companies are doing this. They will create certain types of group that supports the minority members, such as women or racial minority members, racial minority employees. So pretty much they put a group together and trying to create what fosters an inclusive culture. I remember one time I invited a guest speakers from Adelman's Miami office. She's the general manager of Miami office. She is actually also the leaders of Adelman's Global Women's Equality Network. So it's a group that brings all the female employees at Adelman together, regardless of their backgrounds, the locations they work at, or the countries, the language they say. They just bring all the female workers together, employees together, and they do a lot of online, offline activities, basically just trying to empower women to do their work and to encourage them to pursue better career. And I think that's a really great methods and channels to support diversity, equities, and inclusion. And of course, like employee feedback, storytelling. We see more and more companies are doing storytelling. Either they will set up websites or they will do it on their social media. They will feature certain types of minority members and inviting them to share their stories, whether the difficulties or challenge they encounter in their life, in their workplace, and how they address those concerns, those problems with their companies and organizations. So those storytelling is also really good communication channel. And finally, the most basic ones. I think pretty much all the companies are doing this, providing regular DEI training, educational opportunities for employees in order to increase the awareness and enhance the understandings of employees from different diverse backgrounds.
Thank you so much for sharing those wonderful examples. And as you just mentioned, you said like leadership has a play a lot of important role in terms of facilitating workplace DEI, right? So what are some of the other leadership or even organizational related factors that may help to facilitate DEI in the workplace versus inhibiting that?
So I think if we look into the leadership factors, definitely leadership commitment or diverse leaderships, or even the profiles of the leaderships, right? How many minority members you have in your leadership and the organization leadership is actually the most important features to show that whether these companies value DEI or not, right? If you only have a very like if your leadership profile background is very like simple and only focusing on one, for example, one gender type or one racial or ethnic group, then it actually represents some issues in terms of DEI. So that's why a lot of companies are trying to recruit people or employees from different or diverse backgrounds, just trying to make sure at least from the leadership profiles, it shows some representations and diversity. So that's definitely one way. And then, like I mentioned before, diverse leadership, whether the leadership cares about or value diversity or not. And some problems coming from leadership would be, for example, resistance to change. A lot of leaders or leaderships are hesitant to hire employees from different backgrounds or actually different backgrounds from their backgrounds, right? That might be a problem or lack of representations that I was just mentioning. Sometimes we also see like single directions of communication that might be a problem as well. When the leadership practice single directional communication, they might not be able to listen to their employees' concerns or the feedback. So it would be harder or more difficult for them to change or to create a diverse and inclusion environment. So I think different aspects, right? The styles, communication strategies, or even the demographic representations of the leadership are all very important factors that might facilitate or actually hinder the development of DEI in the workplace.
Thank you for answering that question. And my last question is about one of the recent research project you did. So I know you have done amazing research on how racial minority employees and also female employees can benefit from organizational diversity communication. I noticed that one of your most recent research projects starts to focus on employee who may have mental health challenges. Could you please share with us what you find in this research?
Yeah, so this project, we studied the different contexts from those common or regular discrimination issues employees have been facing in the workplace, like gender or racial discrimination, as you just mentioned. This study actually focused on employees' decision to disclose mental illness in the workplace, especially to their supervisors. So it's more about the health issues or disability problems. And as we all know, attention to mental health issue has been growing significantly in the past decades, right? And then disclosures of mental health is actually really important because it may actually benefit the person by providing or receiving more social support. In the workplace, they might be able to request work accommodation. If they don't disclose anything to their supervisors, they will not be able to receive any social support or accommodations from their supervisors or from the organizations. So it's really important to encourage employees to disclose the issue to their managers. But because of the stigma associated with mental health, a lot of employees are hesitant to disclose their problems to their managers because they don't want to be discriminated. They want it to be treated equally compared to other coworkers. So our study is trying to figure out how we can encourage employees to disclose their mental health issue to their supervisors while managing the stigma and reducing the uncertainty among employees. So this study is trying to incorporate theories from both organizational communication literature and health communication scholarship together to understand how leaders or supervisors' communication strategies may help create a culture of supportiveness in the organization, which may facilitate their disclosure behaviors by reducing, negative outcomes or increasing their efficacy and encourage disclosure behavior. Right. So this is the purpose of the study. And our findings actually verifies a very important role of leaders' communication strategies in creating supportive and safe environments in which employees can share their mental health information, especially with the direction given and empathetic conversation strategies. So we focus on different strategies, different communication strategies, how different communication strategies by leaders may actually create differences and encourage employees to disclose their mental health issues. So based on our findings, we found out that direction given strategy and empathy strategies are most effective communication strategies here. So based on our findings, we actually recommend, for example, health communication practitioners or organization leaders or communicators to design and organize formal trainings and workshops in order to allow the organization leaders to understand or appreciations of the and competence in employing different types of communication strategies, such as direction giving and empathetic strategies, when they talking about mental health issues with their coworkers or with their employees in the workplace. So, for example, when it comes to direction giving strategies, leaders are encouraged to provide specific guidance or information in terms of how they can manage health issues in the workplace, what kind of policies or resources or programs that organizations provide that can help employees handle their mental health issues. So this is more like direction given, right? So that the employees have very clear ideas in terms of the accommodations they might be able to request or the social support they might be able to receive if they disclose the issue to the supervisors. Another strategies that we found very useful based on our study is the empathetic conversations. So leaders are also recommended to communicate their care, compassion for employees' mental health issues, and trying to express how mental well-being is really important to the organizations and to employees as well. So basically, these informations are so important, but it has to be communicated for different strategies, like we mentioned, direction givens or empathetic conversations, right? And also, we also suggest that we can communicate those information for different channels, such as you can do intranet, just have a short message exchange with your employees, or you can do like newsletters, informational sessions, for those informational based informations. But at the same time, you can also do like one-on-one meeting, internal social media or group meetings in order to provide more empathetic conversation by listening to their employees' concerns, expressing their cares. So these are really great communication channels and methods in order to communicate with their employees and to ensure that it will not have any issues if they choose to disclose their mental health problem to their supervisors. So I think those efforts will definitely demonstrate the organization's care for employees' well-being and their willingness to offer help when needed. And actually, it creates another inclusive environment where a caring environment for employees to highlight that our organization not only care about diversity, inclusions, or that highlights race or genders or age, but also we care about those people who actually have some underlying health disease or some issues that they choose or they feel like very personal and private that they are hesitant to share about with their supervisors.
Thank you so much for sharing insight from your research and also all the wonderful insight you have shared on the topic of DEI in the workplace. It was great pleasure chatting you, and we will see you in the next episode.
Thank you for having me.